What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Game Ball with your host, Matson Montilla. Today, joining the show, we have the one, the only Mr. Drew Byrne. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be back on, get ready for a bit of NBA draft coverage.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. A little bit of NBA draft coverage. It's been a little bit since the game two debate. We had good conversations and all that, and we wanted to do something throughout the finals. But we're busy guys. We have stuff going on every once in a while. But glad we can do this before the draft. But one thing I want to talk about beforehand, before we get into the draft, it's a kind of pertaining to the finals, and it's the little LeBron versus Steph Curry debate of who's had the better past 10 years. And I'm just going to say my answer. And my answer is it's clearly LeBron, obviously. I don't know why. Like, this is the most recency bias I've ever heard of in my entire life. But Drew, who do you think's had the best 10 years or past
I
10 years?
also, it's obviously LeBron. Like, I get whatever. Steph has won more championships in the last 10 years. But, like, LeBron's been a far better player over the last 10 years than Steph Curry has. He was the best player in the league, basically unquestionably, up until a couple years ago. So 8 out of the last 10 years, he was the consensus best player, even if he wasn't winning every single MVP. So I don't know how you can argue. I don't really know how you can think that Steph Curry's had a better last 10 years than LeBron.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't understand it. I don't see it. I mean, when you think about it, and I know everybody's like, oh, this championship by the Warriors. It's really impressive. It boosts Steph's resume. I mean, yes, I think it does because he's won, two good ones without KD being there. But the thing is, like, I don't think by him winning this one proves that the other two that he won with KD are more valuable. Because let's be honest, if they didn't have Kevin Durant, they wouldn't have won those two championships. They definitely wouldn't have won. I mean, I don't think they would have won. I don't think they would have won either, to be honest with you, but they definitely would have not won one of those, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think, or at least at the very least, it wouldn't have been so much of a shoe in before the finals even started that the
Mhm.
Warriors were going to win, like, and Steph, I mean, if we're being real, he wasn't the best player on those two teams. Like Kevin Durant, he won Finals MVP, deserved Finals MVP, unlike the Andre Iguodala Finals MVP. Like Kevin Durant was the better player than Steph Curry, so it's not exactly like, I mean, they're fine championships, like he was second best player on the team, like that's fine, but it's not like that's some amazing championship on his resume like like the past one was. Like that was, I think that has far more weight than the first two, or than those
Mhm.
other two did.
I agree. I think this one definitely carries a lot more weight. And another thing I want to bring up about this whole debate, just kind of shut it down, is in the past 10 years, LeBron has won two MVPs. He won one in 2012, one in 2013. Steph Curry has won two MVPs, one in 2015, one in 2016. Steph Curry won four championships. LeBron has won four championships. So there's really no debate. They've won the same amount of the most important awards, and LeBron obviously had to do a lot more to get those awards and win the finals than Steph Curry did. Like, let's be honest. I do not care that Steph Curry won. What is it called? The Magic Johnson Western Conference Finals Award. Like, who cares? LeBron would have won 10 of those. Like, what is, like, that's just the whack. That's so bad. That was the weirdest award I've ever heard of in my entire life.
No, I agree. I don't really know why they came out with that. Like, I don't know. You'd think you'd just make it like a whole Eastern Conference MVP instead of
Yeah.
just like the Western Eastern Conference Finals MVP, because it's just going to go to the best player on the best team. So, yeah, I don't think that award is going to carry very much weight going into the future. Like when you look back on it in like 15 years, nobody's going to care who the Eastern Conference Finals MVP was in 2022. Like it's not going to add, to Steph Curry's resume that he won the conference finals MVP.
I agree. I agree with what you said. Like, it's not who was the best in the West for the entire playoff run, or who was the best in the East for the entire playoff run. It was who was the best in that last round. And like, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, let's be honest. I mean, I think it'd be pretty cool to have the trophy on your mantle at home, like on your fireplace. That's pretty lit. But that's the only value it carries. Is like, it looks cool. Like, it means absolutely nothing. Like, they need to have it carry more weight. Yeah, it'd be cool if it was all Eastern Conference player of the playoffs or something like that, or of the Western playoffs. Because I mean, one last point I want to make before we go down a rabbit hole of this entire conversation is, I mean, call me crazy, but I think that if it was for the entire, let's say this the Western Conference, like who was the best player in the Western Conference during the playoff run, it would have gone to Luka Doncic, not Steph Curry. So that's just me being me. Like Steph doesn't even deserve it.
No, if it was for the whole conference, yeah, I definitely agree. Luka was obviously the best player. He was obviously the MVP as well. Like the Mavericks would have been done without him in the second against the Suns for sure. Like he would have been the overall conference MVP, but that just goes to show that the Western Conference Finals MVP doesn't really mean all that much
Yeah,
other
and
than your team won
so,
the series.
yeah, and to take it one step further is I'm pretty sure Jason Tatum won it for the East. But like, let's be honest, if it was for the entire Eastern Conference, it would have gone to Jimmy Butler 1,050,000, like 100 billion quadrillion percent.
Yeah, exactly. Like if Jimmy Butler would have made that, transition three, then he would have been Eastern Conference Finals MVP. So it's not like that one shot is going to change the entire playoffs. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
or how everybody played in the playoffs. And yeah, Jimmy Butler should have won the overall Eastern Conference MVP if that was for that, and Luka Doncic would have won it too.
Yeah. Well, there we go. We settled the case. Um, so now moving on to the future, as they say, the NBA. The NBA draft is coming up Thursday night, I believe, at 8 p.m. I'm guessing. I'm just kind of spitballing all these fire intros and whatever. But NBA draft, the big three: Paulo, Jabari, Chet. I don't really have an order for them yet. We'll figure that out in a second. I'm just naming all three for you folks to listen to. But those are the big three. How would you rank them? One, two, three. Don't need any. We'll talk about explanations later. But what are your one, two, three order?
All right. My thinking is Jabari, then Chet, then Paolo. That's my initial takeaway.
So is that your three in terms of who you think will go one, two, three, or is there like your
No,
overall?
that's who I think will go 1, 2, 3, but it's
All
also
right.
who I would take 1, 2, 3.
So you would take
Like
one.
regardless of team, I think Jabari's the best player, then Chet, then Paolo.
Okay. Okay. And is that based off of potential or just their
Kind of like a
overall?
combination of things. Like if we want to get into like the explanations, kind of like I think Jabari has the best combination of floor and ceiling. Like I really don't think I can't see him being a bad NBA player. Like worst case scenario, I think he's a solid third option. He's like a Chris Middleton for you, which is like an all-star level player. And he could go higher than that, even if he doesn't have a high ceiling, as I think Chet does. And then Paolo, I feel like he has a high ceiling where he could be the number one option on like the best team on a championship level team, but I'm not sure what his floor is. It's like he's got this NBA ready game, but I'm just not sure how much like this like ISO one-on-one mid-range inside scoring power forward guy is actually going to be able to carry a team.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like I said, I don't really have a one, two, three, but I will have to say this in terms of talking with the players. I agree about Jabari. I don't know if I'd put him one. I don't think the idea of Paulo being bashed just now is like the biggest is true to who he is. I do think that I think it's hard to evaluate him. Maybe this is just me being me, but from the games I've seen, the games I watch with Paulo, is he's just like he's built like a power forward. He's not tall and lanky. He's strong and he's still pretty tall. He's like 6'10", I want to say.
Yeah.
But he's built like one, but he doesn't and he moves a little bit slower, but he's probably the best ball handler out of the three of them. Maybe Chet's better, but definitely better than Jabbar. He can create his own space and create his own shots. And I mean, as much as I want to say like I'm more used to the tall and lanky players that can do that, that doesn't mean Paulo can't do it. I mean, so I don't know if that's like a fair complaint on him. You know what I mean?
No, I don't. I'm not saying that like he's like some like bully ball big time scorer. I'm saying that he kind of is like in the Carmelo Anthony like role, I guess, where he can be like a great player. You can run your offense through him. I'm just not sure how much that really translates into winning like games if he's your number one option. Whereas
Well,
I'm not sure if Jabari or Chet will be a team's number one option, but I think they're more likely to win a championship with a team who has a good number one option. If
see,
that
I
makes
was I was about to say that I don't think that any of these three players are number one options. I don't think or I guess I should say on a championship winning team, but I don't think any of them, like, I mean, they might be, but I don't think they project to it in my mind. I don't really see, I think they're all super nice pieces and can be really good. They can be solid twos, definitely really good threes, but I don't see them being number ones on a team. I agree. I mean, my issue with Jabari is that he couldn't really, the games I've seen, he wasn't really a knockdown shooter on the mid range, which is a little bit concerning. But then again, his guards didn't know how to pass the ball, so maybe that kind of played into it. Like, get what's yours. If you have the ball in your hands, you're not gonna maybe get it on that possession again. I understand, shoot it. He's clearly the best player on the court. 99, I mean 100% of the games almost. Like, he's clearly the best player on the court. But if you don't have teammates that are, I guess, perfect around you, then that obviously doesn't help. With Chet, I love Chet. He's been getting a lot of disrespect. I've seen a lot of times now. He was obviously the top guy entering it because he's this tall guy who can shoot the ball. He can block shots. It's really good. But I've seen him kind of sliding down the boards. And when I say sliding, I don't mean to like 10 or 15, but more so like he's now going from the number one guy to like the 4 or the 5. People have Sheet and Sharp in front of him, which I guess Sharp is good. And if he played this year, like maybe he would have improved, but you can't, I just doesn't make sense. I still think Chet is still a better pick than Sharp. So I don't understand why Chet is getting all that disrespect. Yeah, he needs to add some more muscle, but that just comes to, if you join an NBA team, you're obviously going to be on the craziest, best ever basketball training plan known to mankind. Like, he'll be fine. And yeah, he's a project, but that's what most of these players are. They're all kind of projects in their own. Like, this draft class, in my mind, doesn't really have that surefire number one or number two player and they're available. They're all kind of, like you said, Paulo's solid, Paulo's decent player, but you need to work on him some more. Jabari, decent player, but you need to work on him some more. Chet, decent player, but you need to work on him some more. I think Chet has the best potential to be the best of these three players. But my only concern with Chet is he needs to go to the right, like, perfect team, because if they try and use him incorrectly or don't use him appropriately, then it's just going to be a disaster. That's my. I mean, I don't know why. Like, why do you think Jabari has more potential than Chet?
I don't think he has more potential than Chet. I just feel like he's got a higher floor. So
Mhm.
even if he might not reach the heights that Chet could reach, I feel like there is a chance like end up flailing and not be like incredibly good. Whereas I feel like Jabari's always, no matter what team he goes to, like no matter what situation, he's always going to be a useful piece that's going to be at worst your third option. He's a really good defender. He'll be like a really enhanced 3-and-D guy, basically. And that's like the absolute worst case scenario for him. So even though he might not have the potential of Chet, who I think has the best potential in the class, I think the fact that I don't think that he's going to be bad, or I can't see a way that he's bad, is what puts him number one for me.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I think Jabari shot around 42% from three this year, somewhere in the low 40s, which is obviously tremendous. But again, I agree with that. I do see that, but I do think that Chet is a wonderful tool, and I hope he doesn't go to Orlando, because I feel like when you go to Orlando, you go there to just not succeed. I mean, look how many top 10 picks they have on that team, and they're still drafting in the top 10 now. Now they're drafting number one overall. It's an interesting area, and I mean, they have all this talent, but none of them are blossoming. Like, they're all kind of just okay. Jonathan Isaac's like the best player on that team, and he's okay. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I agree. I think my big three, or I guess in order, I think I would go Chet number one, just because I love his potential. Now, my issue is I don't think he should go number one, because I don't think like I said, the Magic is the right spot for him. But I think Chet's the best prospect, just because I was always kind of like indifferent. I didn't buy into all the hype with him, but the more I see of him, the more I kind of like him. Especially, he had a lot of foul trouble in the March Madness, which obviously is kind of why they lost to Arkansas. But from what I saw, is he's tremendous. I mean, he can again pull up and he can defend. Like that's was something I was concerned about was how will he defend because he's just a lanky, like a very skinny guy. But he did all right. He got the blocks. He was able to box out and get some rebounds. Again, these are college guys, but they're still bigger guys. I mean, he's playing against seniors sometimes, and obviously they're kind of a bit more, way more developed. They're 4 years older than him. So I'd probably go Chet number one. I'd go Jabari. I agree. I think Jabari has the I guess a higher floor, and I think his skills might be able to translate, like you said, with the three. And I would go Paulo number three because he's a mid range guy. But the thing that I find very sneaky about him is his ability to handle the ball and be able to kind of create his own shots, which again, if he goes to the right team, I mean, I think maybe the right team would be Houston just because they have some guys there, especially if Jalen Green can kind of take off. But I think that Paulo could actually be maybe doesn't have as much potential as the other two, but I think Paulo can be almost the one guy that I mean who can be utilized really well to kind of be at the worst like a number three player. So that's how I would kind of go as my big three. But I guess now moving on into I want to do a lottery mock draft. So first pick Orlando, and we're gonna do it based on who we think they will select, not based on like who we want to or who do we think would be the best or who we'd want to be on there, if that makes sense. So we're gonna be going on who we think they'll select. So with the first pick, who do you think the Magic would take?
I think they're gonna take Jabari. There's been a lot of like Paolo hype over the past couple days with him like going number one, but I still don't see it. I don't know. I think they're gonna take Jabari. I think that they're basically just gonna go best player available, and that's what's been like rumored who they think is the best player. Because I mean, they don't really have any other building block pieces. Like there's Jalen Suggs, but who they drafted top five. But I mean, they're not going to worry about him because he's a guard. They're just going to take whichever big they like the best, and I think that's going to be Jabari.
Yeah, I agree. I think they will go Jabari. I think that they'll like the idea of him kind of being able to stretch the floor some more and not having to be as big of a project as a Chet Holmgren would be. And that's the other thing. They are very guard heavy in Orlando. So they definitely are I mean, I guess they're all bigs, but they're not as worried about somebody who can create his own shots like Paulo would. I mean, I know he's rising with the boards, but they don't need a Bunkera because they have, Cole Anthony, Franz Wagner, like you said, Jalen Suggs. I mean, they even have Gary Harris, who's obviously older, but they have a bunch of solid guards who, especially young ones, that they need to kind of take over. So I agree. I think Jabari would be the pick there. With a second pick, I will let you go again. Go first again because it's your team, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Who are they selecting?
I think it's going to be Chet. He's such a Thunder player. Like, I can't see the Thunder not taking Chet if he's there. I love this pick for the Thunder. I think he fits super well because he doesn't have to be the number one guy. Like, he doesn't have to create his own shot. Like, we don't need Paolo because we've got a bunch of like playmakers and guard like Josh Giddey, SGA, who can create for Chet. And basically, the Thunder need a ton of interior defense and just an interior presence. So I think Chet is the obvious pick for the Thunder.
I agree. I mean, I cannot wait. I cannot wait for them to play with Chet on the Thunder. Like I'm buying stock in the Thunder. I love Chet on the Thunder. I hope he goes there. I think I mean, I'm predicting they'll get him. I agree. And it's just the Thunder. The Thunder are good at developing their players too, I feel like. And they have obviously SGA there. They'll have Lou Dort, the man. They have the other boy, Poku, and but in general, they have Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey is a great player. He can move the ball really well. He needs to work on his shooting, clearly. But he's a good piece there, especially SGA there. And I think that they'll be able to, they're not again, the best part is they're not really in a window of needing to compete necessarily. Like obviously, this year, I think they'll move up from being one of the bottom teams to the West to being a higher of the lower third, maybe maybe sneak into a playing game, if not barely miss it. But I think it's good because they're not going to make Chet have to become someone that he doesn't necessarily need to be or become someone that they need him to be early on, if that makes sense. So I think Chet would be perfect. And again, I can't help but love the idea of him and Poku on the court together. Like that's gonna be incredible.
I know the Thin Towers, as they've already been nicknamed. So can't wait to see that.
Man, I'm pumped for the Thin Towers. I'm so pumped. So the next pick, the third pick, is the Houston Rockets, and I'll take it. I mean, again, this is a really hard pick for them. It's very not that obvious now, but I think they'll go and they're gonna select Paulo Banchero. They already kind of opened up, whether it was on purpose or not. I think they already opened up the power forward position by trading Christian Wood to the Mavericks. They kind of have that opening for him, and obviously they're just very young. They are another team like the Thunder who they don't care about competing because their team is extremely, extremely, extremely young. And I like the idea of Boncaro be on the court, be able to create his own shots along with Jalen Green out there. You don't know what Kevin Porter Jr. is going to go. And I'm looking at my phone because I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce this guy's name. But the center they had with the
Oh,
16,
Shengun.
yes, him. I'm excited. I've been hearing a lot of rumors that he's going to be like he was almost like the sleeper, the sneaky pick of the draft last year, who's going to boom and do really, really well. So I'm excited to see how he'll do along with a Boncaro and with Jalen Green and Porter Jr. and just kind of how they all kind of moved and bond together. This young core, and I'm excited that, like I said, they opened up the position. They took out Christian Wood. They can slide Boncaro in there, allow him to create his own shots, and again become the player who his floor or his not his floor, his ceiling is supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably the best spot for Paolo to go to. I think either that or Orlando, where he's either the best or second best player on the team, because that way he's going to get to develop his game the most. Because like we were talking about earlier, we think that he's a type of guy who you can like actually run your offense through and for, unlike the other two. So yeah, him and Jalen Green could be a scary combo in the West in a few years. And
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I think plus also I think it's good that they already have like an established center as much as a second year player can be, because he's definitely the worst of the three defensively, but that can kind of like cover up for some interior defensive flaws that Paolo has, whereas the other two, especially Chet, is gonna have to make up a lot of flaws defensively that the Thunder have on the inside.
yeah. It's too bad Lou Dort isn't a center, or else they'd be in perfect position to play great defense together. But the next pick, the Sacramento Kings. So I think that they will. Honestly, the way I'm looking at it, I know Mike Brown's coming in from the Warriors, and I'm not saying, oh, they're gonna get Jordan Poole because Mike Brown coached them on the Warriors. But I'm again, we're not gonna be necessarily like doing trades like, oh, they're gonna trade with this team now to move up to four. But I think that the Kings and how they're kind of built and just the team in general, they haven't made the playoffs in 15 years, if not more. It's been since the Chris Webber days. It's been a while. And I mean, the next kind of conscious selection would be Jaden Ivey. He doesn't want to go to the Kings. My thing is, don't draft somebody that doesn't want to be on your team. I think it's never going to really work out. I just, if he doesn't want to be there, you shouldn't get him. Now, I think with the pick, they're going to go Sheet and Sharp if they keep it. I think that he has great potential. I mean, like I mentioned, reports been coming out that a lot of teams believe that if he played this year, he would have been the number one pick in the draft, which again, you never know. He obviously is very athletic. He's a good shooter. I'm excited to see what he does. I'm happy that he didn't slip all the way down to like the 15th area because he had an injury. But I'm interested. I think Sharp will be the selection here if they keep the pick, but I don't think they will, just because the Kings have this flawed of idea that they just can't develop guys. They never had. They never just they can't do it. I mean, the one guy they did develop with Hal Burton is gone now because they got Sabonis in there. But I think the idea of having Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox and being in a win now mode kind of model with their team, they can't just keep on and bring on another young guy and hope that he hits. So I think they moved the pick, whether that's for Jordan Poole or that's for something else from the Knicks, which would be an atrocious idea because what did the Knicks really have to give you besides like RJ Barrett, who's it's not that good in my opinion, or not, he's not bad, but like he's not this surefire number three guy, if that makes sense. And I also don't think the Knicks will trade Barrett. So I don't like the idea of trading with the Knicks. But point of this long ramble is that I don't think they'll keep their pick, but if they do, they'll get Sharp.
I definitely agree. I think they definitely take Sharp if they have the pick. Like, even though I think that Ivy is a better player, but I'm gonna be honest, I absolutely hate the idea of Jaden Ivey and De'Aaron Fox in the same backcourt. I don't think it works at all. Like, they're way too similar of players. Like, I just don't see it working. Whereas I feel like Shane Sharp doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands. He's a great. He's. I mean, how much do we really know? I guess, but he's allegedly a great defender, good off the ball shooter. Right. I actually think that fits pretty well. If I was the Kings, I'd keep the pick and probably take Sharp. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they trade it. I mean, I can't believe they got rid of Halliburton. I think Halliburton and Ivy, that would have been a great fit together. But, they can't do that anymore since they traded away their best young player. But who knows? Maybe if they get Jordan Poole, they'll be a sneaky, almost playing team next year.
I mean, this is all I have to say. If you can't get the next Steph Curry and Buddy Hield, then try again and get the quote unquote next Steph Curry and Jordan Poole. I mean, hey, if it doesn't work once, try again.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
So with the fifth pick is the Detroit Pistons. They're on the board. They're looking. Who do you think the Pistons will select here?
I think they go with Jaden Ivey. I think they go with the best player. I actually like him and Cade together because Cade can go off ball. Jaden Ivey can go off ball a little bit. And I don't know. I think you're seeing a lot. I think this is going to be like a thing that comes up in the NBA a lot more where like you've got these two guards and either one of them's like totally the point guard, ball dominant guy. But they can both create for themselves. They can both play off ball. It's kind of the same idea that like a lot of teams have with wings right now, like the Celtics with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Like one's better. Like I think Cade is better than Jaden Ivey, but like the other one is still like all-star level, even if they're like supposedly a similar mold. So I feel like Jaden Ivey in Detroit makes a lot of sense. They could go someone like Keegan Murray, but I feel like they're not really in a place where they want to take a 22-year-old who's coming into the draft. I feel like they want to go with the young guy and see if they can develop him because they're a while away from making the playoffs anyways. So they might as well see what they can get in Jaden Ivey with more upside.
Yeah, I agree. I think they will go Jaden Ivey. I think that he's kind of. I know there's Keegan Murray, but I'm not a huge fan of Keegan Murray. I'm not really all Keegan Murray over Jaden Ivey in this situation. I agree. Again, like you mentioned, you made a really, really good point about the idea of, there's some of these two guards like the Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown idea. And as much as I'd like to say Jaden Ivey go to the Pacers, just in terms of it'd be a cool story. His mom played for the Fever and he's from the area. That'd be cool. But I do think that he'll go to the Pistons. Again, they're in the this rebuild idea, and I think the idea of Cade Cunningham with Jaden Ivey is super, super intriguing, and I think they'd be good together. Obviously, Sadiq Bey is there too, and he's a good shooter. He's a great defender too. So I like the idea of having those three guys there, and they obviously have some more players. Jeremy Grant, who knows what's going to happen with him? Maybe they trade up and get another young player in this draft. Who knows? I know they were kind of rumored to maybe be trading with Portland. Maybe they move up in the draft. There's a lot going on with the Pistons, but they keep their pick. I do believe that they go Jaden Ivey. So the next selection is the Indiana Pacers. Who do you think the Pacers will select with the rest of the people on the board, like Keegan Murray, Dyson Daniels? Who do you think they'll select?
I think they go with Dyson Daniels. I haven't seen a lot of people mock this, so maybe they won't go with Dyson Daniels, but I think he fits pretty well with Tyrese Halliburton. Like, so that way, because I mean, Halliburton's played off ball basically his entire, short career, but he was like, we saw how effective he was with being the secondary playmaker. So if you get Dyson Daniels in there, obviously the one major flaw is he can't shoot at all. But at least he attempts them, so he's doing better than Ben Simmons is so far. But no, I think Dyson Daniels, he's in the Josh Giddey mold. They're both Australian. They're both playmakers. I mean, I honestly don't think Dyson Daniels is ever going to be able to shoot, which is going to be a serious problem. Like, he shot 53% on free throws in the G League, so that doesn't fill with a lot of confidence. But I do think if you're going to go with a player like that, I think he makes the most sense on the Pacers.
I guess sure. If the guy can't shoot, why not select him? That's a great idea. That's the best idea I've ever heard. But I'm interested to see what the Pacers do because they have Malcolm Brogdon there, obviously with Tyrese Haliburton, Daniels. He would slide in. I mean, Brogdon would have to go, but I mean, the Pacers aren't really. I mean, I'm sure a team would be intrigued with Brogdon, but not many teams have I've heard of at least having kind of targeting him. Obviously, as the offseason ramps up, maybe they might target him, but again, they need to have him, you know, have an idea that he's going to be gone. They need to open up the hole for Dyson Daniels. I think when you get a young guy in the top 10 picks, the idea is to start him kind of, right away. But I'm going to go with Keegan Murray. Call me the safe guy making the safe selection. But I think the Pacers will go Keegan Murray. He has a good mid range. He's pretty solid at defending, and I think he slides in there with Byrne. I mean, there's other guards on the Pacers too with Buddy Hield. So maybe again, the idea of Dyson Daniels isn't atrocious because they have Buddy Hield who can go in there and knock down some shots. The next Steph Curry, it's on the team, but I don't know. I'm not really feeling it. I'm not a huge buyer in Keegan Murray. I'm not buying in all the hype for him, but I think that he'd be a solid player to go on the Pacers and play alongside the team they have. I mean, why do you think they don't go Keegan Murray here and instead Dyson Daniels? Like,
I
obviously
don't
you like Dyson Daniels more, but is there like a reason that you think the
I
Pacers?
feel like I don't know because normally and basically every other year that I've ever seen the Pacers, I'd probably go Keegan Murray because they've never really decided to like bottom out and like stop trying to push for that like eighth seed when you know you didn't there wasn't the playing game and then the 10th seed. But once they traded Sabonis, I feel like that makes them more likely to sell off some of their other pieces. And I think that Dyson Davis has a higher upside than Keegan Murray. And I feel like they basically just need to wipe their slate clean, not worry about who they have on the roster. Like obviously they have Brogdon, but I think he goes at some point, especially if they do take Dyson Daniels. And I don't know. I feel like he's the better like long term upside play. And I think that's who the Pacers go for.
Okay, that makes sense. So with the seventh pick, it's now Portland. They're on the board. I mean, who knows what they're really doing? Are they trying to win? Are they not trying to win? Like, but does the front office want to win? Do they not? I don't. I couldn't tell you. Again, I don't think trading the pick 7 for Jeremy Grant is going to push you over the top to be a championship level team. Like, it's pretty easy to be the best player on the worst team in the league. That's what they say, and it's true. Uh, but I don't know. Like, I don't think they'll keep this pick. I really don't. I don't think they'll keep it. I think they'll move off of it. But they have Dame, Anthony Simmons there. They have Nurkic there. I'm not too sure what their idea is, but if they keep the pick, which again I don't think they will, who do you think they select?
I mean, I think they go Keegan Murray because he's still available for me. I think he slides in pretty well. He's not going to have to be like the main guy on the team, which I don't think he's going to be in the NBA. But I think he'd be good next to Dame and Simons. Like he's just kind of off the ball. He shot 38% from three this past season in college, and he's a good defender. So I feel like if they don't trade it for somebody, I think he's a good young player that basically fits exactly what they need, even if it's not the most exciting or high upside selection. So if they're going to keep Dame and try to compete, I feel like Keegan Murray's the pick.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, he can slide in there into one of those forward positions too. Now, a guy I'm going to go with, which is probably going to be the most controversial selection yet, aside from your Dyson Daniels move, I think Portland. I think they're going to look at getting Johnny Davis. I think Davis is a solid guard. He's another ball handler having a team. Anthony Simmons can shoot. I mean, but the idea is in the West is the Western Conference is it's a guard heavy it's a guard heavy conference. Where the East you have all these bigs. You have Robert Williams, Bam Adebayo, Joel Embiid. You name it. Every team that's kind of competing, they have a really talented big on their team. Where you look at the West, it's more of guard heavy, quick moving, speedy guys. Obviously, the Warriors just won it. Jordan Poole, Clay, Steph. Although Clay is like half of a person now because he can't really move that well. You look at the Suns, they have Chris Paul. I know Mikal Bridges is a forward, but he was a guard entering the league. And then obviously Devin Booker. It's a very guard heavy. John Morant, Desmond Bain, more examples of it. And I was thinking Dyson Daniels, maybe getting somebody who can guard those players, right? But offense wins the games nowadays. It's not really defense. You saw them in the playoffs. Boston had the best defense. They were presenting a lot of problems to Golden State, but obviously the offense exploded and took off. And Johnny Davis has an amazing Taco Bell commercial. So I think that Johnny Davis would be a good pick. I think that he'll move in there. He'll learn his role. He's not going to be almost a player like I need the ball in my hands. It's all about me. I need to kind of take over. He'll learn his role. He'll fit in well. Anthony Simmons can shoot. Dame can shoot. Davis is a decent shooter. Although his three wasn't as good as I wanted to be in college, it was about 32%. He still proved that he can make shots when it matters. He could obviously has a great free throw percentage, unlike Dyson Daniels. So I like the idea of having the three guards that can go out there and that can shoot the ball and can play offense. And another thing to keep in mind, who knows how long Dame will really be there? I'm not sure. And if it doesn't work out, which I think he'll be there until he retires, I truthfully believe that, because I don't see Portland moving on from him, because that would cause all kinds of issues. And I don't see Dame ever requesting to leave, especially after a year like this. And you look at what they have, he knows they can't compete. Like, I don't know how you don't buy into it that they're not ready to compete. But if something happens with Dame and Dame goes, they go their separate ways, Johnny Davis, Anthony Simmons would be a very intriguing backcourt that can kind of pick up the slack and be the future.
No, I do like that pick. I think especially if they're thinking about moving on from Dame, I just don't think that they're moving on from Dame. I don't know. Maybe Dame requests a trade, but I feel like his legacy thing now is that he's like this super loyal guy, which I mean, I'm not sure that's the legacy that I would want, where you're not winning anything and you're not getting any awards, but he's staying in the exciting city of Portland, Oregon, so that's fun.
I mean, there you go. There you go. Well, the next team should be the Lakers, but it's not. It's the New Orleans Pelicans with pick number 8. So who do you think that they're going to select?
All right. Well, obviously in the past couple days, right, there's been this rumor that the Suns want to trade for this pick, which that makes no sense to me at all. I don't see it. Like, I don't know what they're trading to get the 8th pick. I don't know who they want to draft, where they exactly need the 8th pick, because it can't be somebody who they think is a chance of going higher than 8. So I don't really understand this idea. But if I'm New Orleans, I don't know. I like their team. I like their team dynamic. So I don't know. I like AJ Griffin to New Orleans, to be honest. Like, he can shoot. He doesn't need the ball, right? They've obviously got, CJ McCollum, Brendan Ingram, Zion if he plays. So they don't need somebody who's like dominant. But I think AJ Griffin come off the bench for his first year, right? See what happens. And he's just a good like plug and play role player who isn't exactly like needed to carry anything. But I mean, that's what he did at Duke, and that's what he can do here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I like that. I like the idea of it. I mean, having another shooter there, spacing is going to be huge in the NBA. He's going to have way more space than he ever did in college. Joining the NBA, obviously, like you said, they have a great kind of dynamic there with they have CJ McCollum, maybe Zion's coming back, Brandon Ingram. They're a good team. They look good. Now, I was getting all ready to say this pick. I also don't think the Suns and New Orleans will make a trade, because I don't know who the Suns would trade. I mean, the only idea would be maybe DeAndre Ayton. Maybe the Pelicans want a big there. They can slot him in. I think their centers it's not Valanciunas. Is it Valanciunas? Is that their center? Valanciunas. Okay, yeah. And he's solid, but maybe they want to go younger, max that potential at DeAndre Ayton. But my thing is, though, maybe they're on different trajectories. New Orleans, the Phoenix, but I think New Orleans can compete next year. So I don't know why, unless you really think DeAndre Ayton's going to push you over the top as the Pelicans. I don't know why you want to trade with the Suns. I don't know what the Suns would offer. I'm assuming it can't be much or anyone that can make an instant impact on your team. So I wouldn't really help them out. Why would you get an older player on your team that's not going to help you out that much and help another team win it all, or not win it all, but win more than you? But the player that I think would be very interesting, and I know they got Jose Alvarado, this lockdown defender who I guess isn't really, he's like he's like one of those, he's a really good, smart guy by hiding in the corner and stealing the ball. every once a game from hiding in the corner. I don't know how you don't pick that up as an NBA team, but it works. But the player that I want to see on the Pelicans, he doesn't need to start right away, but is Benedict Mathurin from Arizona. Okay, and I think the Pelicans would look at this, and I think they would consider making the selection. I know there's Dyson Daniels, again, great defender, but Mathurin kind of prove it. I'm not buying into this whole G League stuff. I'm not. I heard. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really buying into it that much. I don't think that it's all that. And again, if you can't shoot and you can't score in the G League, you're not doing too hot because I mean, I interviewed with Drum Blossom game, and he said that the G League is probably the one that is the easiest league to scoring. It's easier to score than in college. So if you can't score there, what makes me think that you can score in the NBA? But I think Mathurin, he can defend he can play every guy. He can defend every position of the court, is what I was trying to say. And he has great scoring versatility. And I think that he would be able to slide in right with that team and provide a good presence off the bench. I think that would be a perfect selection. And he's 6'6". If you can develop him properly, dude's going to be super, super good. That's the other thing. Like, it's not often that you see a 6'6" guard. Obviously, he's not one of these extremely fast, speedy guys. But if you're a 6'6" guard and you can develop a better offense, I mean, maybe he's just going to be a 4-inch shorter version of Ben Simmons, but can actually shoot the ball. And I think that's pretty intriguing. So that's who I think. I think that'd be a really good selection for the Pelicans to make.
Yeah, no, I do like that pick. He's right up there. I think he's good. I think he's good. I just feel like the shooting might be more like needed to have like the full lockdown shooting of someone like an AJ Griffin. Just if they have like Valanciunas on the court and they have Zion on the court at the same time, like Zion not really a shooter, Valanciunas not really a shooter. So I feel like having someone who's absolutely knocked down could be useful in spots. So I think he's probably more useful right now, whereas Matherin could be like a better long term idea.
Yeah, I agree with that. I see that. And I mean, the Pelicans, they already have solid defenders with like Herb Jones. He's really good, and they don't really have a true point guard on that team. They have obviously CJ McCollum, but then they have Jose Alvarado, Devontae Graham, Trey Murphy did really well for them. So I guess I understand they don't necessarily need another defender, but if they can develop a great sense of great defenders around them and have that great defense, and they already have scores, I think it would be super interesting because I don't know how much Griffin can. Again, Griffin is he's a knockdown. He will be considered kind of the knockdown 3-point shooter. And I know those are valuable players, but you can also pick up some of those players in free agency, and it's going to cost you some more money, but there's not going to be an outrageous contract, if that makes sense. So I think that you look at Mathurin and Griffin, maybe Griffin can slide in there better, but you can get a Griffin. You can't get a Mathurin, if that makes sense.
I see what you're saying. I don't know. I like AJ Griffin. I think I don't know. He's been injured like a lot during his time. Like I think he had a couple major injuries during high school, but I think he like sneaky has good like developmental potential. Like he can kind of handle. He can get to his spots, and I feel like maybe you don't need that right now on the Pelicans, but I mean, right now your number one like offensive option is Brandon Ingram. And like if CJ Kong gets a little older, like you can slide AJ Griffin in there and he's a good secondary like playmaking option as opposed to having like Zion handle the ball all the time, which I don't know is the best use of him.
Yeah, that makes sense. So moving on, the ninth pick, San Antonio Spurs. I think they'll go Daniel Dyson because he's available for me. They like their foreign players, Australian, fits right in, perfect. But they're on a very weird situation where they always try and compete. They always try and compete, right? That's all they really do. And they have this like shift team that's just kind of a bunch of solid guys that work super hard, but they're not going to do much. But I think they're kind of moving in a different direction now. I like DeJounte Murray at point. I think they can bring in a Dyson Daniels where they don't necessarily need someone who can shoot the ball, where it would be good. But Daniels, I guess right now, out of the players I have drafted, he has the highest potential available out of the rest of the guys. So I think they're going to look at that and say, if we can develop him right, which the Spurs, they're good. They're great at developing players. I think they look at that and said, let's get a good defender in here. We can slot him in. They don't necessarily need a scorer right now in the backcourt. Again, they have Lonnie Walker there. They have DeJounte Murray, like I mentioned. So they don't necessarily need someone who can come in and shoot. So I think they'll use Dyson properly. So I think it's just the obvious choice, pick 9. Clearly the best player available. So I'm going to the Spurs.
Yeah, no, I like that pick. I have them going Johnny Davis because I still have him available. I think he's the best player available left for me too. That's the San Antonio move. They pick the best player available. It's not like they have any like super obvious holes on their roster. I like Johnny Davis next to DeJounte Murray as well. DeJounte Murray, obviously a good defender. Johnny Davis, a really, really good defender too. So I like that backcourt. And I don't know. I think best player available. Maybe he doesn't have the upside as a couple of players left on the board, but I think it would be like reaching for upside at that point. Like I don't have Dyson Daniels left on my board, so I don't know. I like Johnny Davis. He fits well in the backcourt. Like you said, they've got a lot of backcourt options, but like you also said earlier, the West has a lot of backcourt guys who you need to be able to defend, and I think Johnny Davis is useful for that, and he can be like a secondary scorer for them too.
Exactly. So I agree with that. I do. Don't really have much more to add to it because I think it's the right selection for them. Again, he's probably the best. Like you said, he's the best available player on the board on your from what you were saying. So now moving on, 10th pick. Interesting situation. Washington, the Wizards. Who really knows what's going to happen? Who knows what direction to go in? They have Kristaps Porzingis there. I mean, who really like? He's obviously had a lot of injuries. Hasn't really worked out on a massive contract. Then they have Bradley Beal. Will Bradley Beal stay or will he go? Who knows? But I'm gonna base off the idea, and again, you can base yours differently. But let's or if you want, but I think we should base off the idea that Bradley Beal probably, presumably, he's gonna be gone. So who do you think they'll select if Bradley Beal is no longer with the team?
I think they go for Matherin because I still have him left. I think he's the best player. And if they're going into like a rebuild without Bradley Beal, like their best player, they got Kyle Kuzma, so that's fun. Shout out Kyle Kuzma, by the way. He had a great second half of the season for the Wizards, so shout out to him. But no, I like Matherin, like we were talking about earlier when you had him going. I think he's the best player who I have left. Like they could go for a center, and I wouldn't mind that. But I feel like the centers in this draft are kind of like one dimensional after you get past like the big three bigs. They kind of are just like your classic lob threats they can defend, but they're not offering much more. And I feel like Matherin has a higher ceiling than those guys, and that's who they need to take, especially if they get rid of Bradley Beal.
Okay. I also think they'll get rid of him, whether he'll accept his player option or not, and maybe force a trade out after that. I'm not sure, but I think it's inevitable that he'll be gone. I know they want to keep him, but I don't know. I just don't see it happening. He's like the Eastern version of Damian Lillard, but I think he knows his worth. He can do something outside of Washington. So a player I think would be really interesting there, and it might be considered a bit of a reach because I haven't seen him go at least top 10. Yeah, I've seen him go later in the lottery, but definitely not top 10. And that's Ty Washington. I think that if Bradley Beal's gone, Ty can come in there and be that great ball handler for the team. He can obviously create for others. I think that's a big thing. I think he averaged around 12 points a game last year, which is nothing really to write home about. But I think he'd be perfect to kind of go in there and be that player who can move the ball and have someone who can create shots for others. Because when Bradley Beal's gone, I don't know who would really go out there and be able to create shots for others. I don't see Kuzma, obviously not Porzingis as a big. That's like a 1 in a million shot that like you'll have a Nikola Jokic on your team. So I think they go for Washington. I think they can develop him some more. Obviously, Kentucky guards, they've had a huge impact now in the NBA. You name them, they probably played for Kentucky, like Jamal Murray, Devin Booker, Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey. All these guys are kind of taken off in the NBA. So I think they go for Washington. I think he'd fit well with the team.
Yeah, no, I like that pick. I like the idea of having another playmaker once Bradley Beal leaves. Because, yeah, like you said, there's nobody really creating offense for themselves. So they're going to need somebody to do that. And I do think Ty Washington's like the best player left at setting up other people, even if he doesn't have like the highest like scoring potential by himself. So I like the pick.
So now moving on, number 11, New York Knicks. Again, rumored to move up. They love Jaden Ivey. They really want to get him, but I don't see it happening. I don't think they can present a package to go from 11 to 4 without trading RJ Barrett. People love Mitchell Robinson's been this guy who's supposed to hit the past like 3, 4 years, and somehow he's still supposed to hit the next 4 to 5 years. But that's not really an intriguing piece to me. I don't think that's an intriguing piece to many NBA teams. But we're going to go with the Knicks stay put at 11. Who do you think they select?
I think they're for Jalen Duran because, like you said, Mitchell Robinson, he's a free agent this year. I can't see them bringing him back. Like they've got Nerlens Noel. Like Nerlens Noel is just not good and is always injured. And I don't know. I feel like they could do with that foundational piece. Hopefully, get some less foul trouble that Mitchell Robinson seems to always get into. And yeah, like they need somebody to fill that hole at center. Even like Julius Randle as a big, I feel like they're going to try to move him. So I feel like they're going to have Obi Toppin as their best front court player. So I feel like they're going to need like an athletic big to cover up some defensive weaknesses that the rest of the Knicks roster has. So, and I mean, I don't know. They were locked down on defense a couple years ago, but they're all kind of falling apart now. So I feel like defensive big makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think they will go Jalen Duren. I agree. I think it makes sense to have him go in there, be that defensive big. I mean, he was very talented coming out of high school, and I think he was clearly the best player on Memphis this year. I know Imani Bates only played like a third of the games this year, but Duren really took a huge step, and without him, they wouldn't have had obviously being Boise State in the first round. Without him, they wouldn't have even competed with Gonzaga in the second game of or round of 32, second game of March Madness. And I agree, he can go out there, he can go in there and play well, kind of relieve the defensive pressure off of Obi Toppin. And again, the East, I get that's something again, it's important. The Eastern Conference, a lot of centers, a lot of big men. That's what's kind of thriving. So if you can have someone that go in there, and yes, he's maybe not as mobile to kind of go out there and defend like a Bam Adebayo, but he can lock down the paint and be maybe even a better version of Robert Williams, who was huge part of the Celtics' success. So I think they go Duren. I know people were thinking about maybe, hey, what about AJ Griffin? He can go in there, he can slide in there and shoot the ball for them. But that's just not someone I think that has all the potential. And the Knicks, although they think they're always in a win now mode, they shouldn't get AJ Griffin because he's kind of a win now type of player.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I feel like they just have to start building like for the future because obviously, I don't know, their team's just they're just very devoid of talent outside of like RJ Barrett. I think is better than you think he is, but I still don't think he's like great. I don't think he's gonna be like the number one option on some teams. So I don't know. Maybe they go with like a high, like random upside player, but I feel like Jalen Duren is the best combination of like safe, fits the need, and gives you some like actual talent to work with.
Now, someone that I think would be interesting to go on the Knicks, and I don't think it will happen just because, let's say they do end up keeping Julius Randle around. I think Duren would be a good pick regardless. But let's say they keep Randle around, Obi Toppin obviously there, RJ Barrett, he's kind of a taller guard, can play forward. But a player I think would be interesting to see on the Knicks would be Jeremy Schoen from Baylor. He needs to develop a consistent 3-pointer, but he can really defend. He can kind of work on that pick and roll. And he didn't really, I guess my thing is he's again kind of a developmental player, or I don't think that, but I guess he has more potential. So I was trying to say he has a lot of potential out of the available guys. And I think that he could be a really interesting piece to go on the Knicks.
Yeah, no, I like him, and I think I'm going to talk more about him when we get to the next pick. So,
I'll take it away. It's your team, the Oklahoma.
Segue, my team, the Thunder, second lottery pick. I think if we don't get Chet and we go for like Paolo or Jabari or something, I think we take Mark Williams. Just for the record, I think we have to take a center. But if we get Chet, I think Jeremy Sohan he's the player that I think we're going to take. Like, I don't know if that's the player that I would take if I was the Thunder. But, I mean, he's probably the best defensive player in the draft, like, just based on pure defense. He can guard all 5 positions. He's 6'9". Like you said, he can't shoot. But, the Thunder don't have a problem with drafting players who don't shoot. That's the Thunder classic MO is draft a super athletic wing guy who can defend a lot and can't shoot and hope that he develops into something. And then, well, I'm gonna be honest, most of the time they don't. But like Hamidou Diallo and Terrence Ferguson, the list goes on and on. But I think he's got a much higher defensive ceiling, which puts his floor a lot higher than everybody else. Even if he can't shoot, he's got some playmaking ability, which I think is nice. So you can get him on the floor, like even if he's on the bench unit with, I don't know, like Trey Manning, because Trey Manning can shoot instead of having Josh Giddey on the floor, who's another guy who can't shoot. So I think you can kind of rotate your lineups around. I know it's unfortunate that they have every single player who can't shoot, but I think you can rotate your lineups around to fit him in because his defense could just be that valuable, especially since it looks like there's a chance that Lou Dort gets moved in the next couple off seasons once his contract expires. So we'll see.
Well, I mean, I was gonna say the same pick. You kind of explained it pretty well, but you're right. They love this type of player. It's the perfect selection, fits the Thunder mold. And hey, again, you have a long line of the past couple of years of these great, amazing defenders. Andre Roberson, all right, and then Lou Dort took it over. Do you think Jeremy? Do you think he can take it over? Maybe he'll be the next guy that's got to go out there and be a lockdown defender for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean,
Hey, we've got a lot of them, but like none of them can ever like shoot. But that's okay because hopefully we've got other people who can shoot at some point.
I
That's
mean,
what I really want to. I really want the Thunder to get AJ Griffin at 12 for the record. I think he'd be the perfect player, but
well,
he's not.
I think I can guess why. He can shoot the ball. He can shoot.
Yeah,
That'd be
exactly.
perfect. But do you think they move their pick and I guess move up in the draft?
I think ideally the Thunder would want to move up into the draft, get it into that top 10 range because, I mean, as we know, the Thunder have like a million first round picks. So if they could like package like one or two future firsts and pick 12 and move up, then I don't see why they wouldn't if there's a player that they really like. But I don't know. I think we've seen over the past couple of years that they're either waiting for the right time to move the picks or they're just like never going to trade them. So we'll see. But no, I think if especially if I don't know, like the Pacers or somebody don't have somebody who they really like around like 6, 7, 8 range, whichever team doesn't have somebody they really like and really want to ignite a rebuild, then just give them a couple extra picks and then move up to get the guy who you want.
Yeah. So I agree. But now moving on to the next pick 13, the Charlotte Hornets. Now, the player I think that because I was kind of thinking of it through who I think they will select. I think the surefire guy that they should select is Mark Williams because they need a center desperately, and he's kind of like the best. He's like the last solid best center available, and I think he's super good. I love Mark Williams. He did a tremendous job at Duke. He's 7 foot. He can defend super well. He can be a lob threat, and that's what the Hornets need. I think that's a match made in heaven. But here's the thing: they have pick 13, pick 15, pick 14 are the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs are a young team, and they have two great bigs with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. So let me just explain my logic with this. Is I don't think they moved their pick because they want to get another young guy in there. They want to get another young player there. I don't think they're going to say, yeah, you know what, let's move it. Maybe we'll get an experienced guy because whatever would be offered for pick 14, unless there's a lot more to the package, would just be a mid contributor like Joe Ingles 3 years ago would probably basically be the perfect trade right there. But obviously, Joe Ingles is not that good anymore. But aside from the point, the Cavs will keep their pick. They're not going to take Mark Williams. So the Hornets will wait to take Mark Williams at pick 15 rather than take Mark Williams pick 13, having a player they actually want, then go to the Cavs and then, whatever. I think you guys follow the logic.
No, I agree. I think that's the move because like you said, they obviously need a center. So if they don't trade for Miles Turner, who I feel like I see a projected trade for Miles Turner for the Hornets every single year, like 5 times, especially when it comes to the trade deadline. Every single possible article has Miles Turner to the Hornets, and they've never gone for it. But yeah, I think Mark Williams is a great pick for them if they decide to just bite the bullet and take him at 13. But no, I think they wait as well. I think they take a wing,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I think they go for. Do you want to go first?
No, you can go. You can hopefully don't say Mike. I'll let you go. I'll let you go.
My bad. My bad. I think they were for Agbaji from Kansas. Is that who you're going for?
No, that's not how it's going for because I
All
don't
right.
I don't like that idea of having him. I think he'll go to Cleveland. I think that's where he's going to go.
I wouldn't
My
be surprised.
That's my pick, guys. By the way, I have him going to Cleveland. That's
Yeah.
what I think the Caps will select.
No, I think the Hornets go for him. I like him on the Hornets. He can defend. He can shoot. I feel like he plays well next to LaMelo. He's a little undersized for like a two guard, but LaMelo makes up for that size, so they can like switch off where he can defend point guards because he can actually defend, and LaMelo can go on the two guards because he's got the size for it. But I think he just fits well, especially like this last season. He shot over 40% from three in college. He scored 20 points a game. And I don't know. I just think he's a great pick. End of the lottery, pretty high floor guy. And you don't need him to be like the star of your team because you've already got one.
Well, I think they will select too. Even if AJ Griffin's on the board, I think they're going to go for, and this might be a bit of a shell shock. Oh, Matson. I think they're going to go for Malachi Branham from Ohio State. Okay. He's a young guard. He can play forward if needed. He shot over 40% from three. He shot about 45, 47-ish percent from the field. He was the kind of the go-to guy for Ohio State down the stretch. He could create a shot. He can move the ball. He can do really well. I think he fits well with LaMelo Ball in the backcourt. And here's the other thing. They have Terry Rozier there, yes. And maybe they keep him. They can move Brandon up to forward. The team's really interesting. I think he would slide in perfect because I think they're going to move off one of these guys, whether it's Rozier, Oubre, or Hayward. I think they're going to move off one of those three guys. And if they do so, in doing so, they'll open up a new spot. They have Miles Bridges there. They have a lot of these kind of rotational pieces in a way, but I think they can do a great idea. Maybe even pushing Rozier down to being a six man, and you move an Oubre or a Hayward. But I think it'd be really interesting to have Brandon, who can shoot 40% from three. That's really effective. That's super good alongside LaMelo. Brandon can create his own shots if needed, and he can just spot up and shoot the ball if needed too. And that's, I think, something that would benefit the Hornets. Then you have Miles Bridges there if they, inevitably give him this big contract that he proved to deserve. And then you have PJ Washington, who can slide in at power forward. I mean, he's been kind of wait and see. Is he going to hit yet? Is he going to hit yet? Is he going to hit yet? Like literally, when is he going to hit? He hasn't yet, but that we're hoping on, they're banking on it. And then center Mark Williams. So I think the idea of having Brandon go in there and be able to shoot the ball, be able to do really well. And I think being younger and having more potential than AJ Griffin, who I think Griffin's just a 3-point shooter. I think the idea is super intriguing.
No, I definitely like that idea. We obviously both agree that they need some sort of wing presence alongside LaMelo Ball who fits well with him. And I think anybody who can shoot, secondary play, make, and defend is got to be the pick there at 13.
I know. I mean, what happened to Bognite? Like, where has he been? That's where he played like 0 minutes this year.
I don't know. Well, hey, you've already spoiled your 14th pick, but if you want to talk about it a little bit more.
I did. I'll just basically say I think that the Cavs will select him because he's older, he's proven himself, he can kind of lead the team, and they don't need someone to be this young guy that can hit right away, but they want a younger guy. That's why I don't think they'll trade their selection. He's basically the younger version of whoever they would trade for. So I think they draft him and they'll kind of just keep that core around and give it another year to kind of boom. Because I think the direction the Cavs are moving in with Garland, maybe they re-sign Sexton, who I hope they do. I know there's been kind of, I guess, tension with Garland and Sexton. That's what was kind of rumored. But I don't think you move off of Sexton because he's a solid player. You have Jared Allen, excuse me, you have Evan Mobley. I think it would just be a good core. Karis LeVert there's too. I think it'd just be the right selection for the Cleveland Cavaliers to do.
Yeah, no, I definitely like the pick. Obviously, he's off my board because I think the Hornets are gonna like steal him right in front of the Cavs because I do think that's a pick that the Cavs would make. So I'm gonna go with Tari Eason from LSU. It's kind of the same model, right? He's not as old, but he's a little bit older, right? He's gonna be, I think he might be 22 when the season starts. He's 21 now, and he slides into like that small forward / shooting guard kind of role. He's 6'6", and they don't have to play Lauri Markkanen at small forward, which I couldn't believe that they were doing with their little 3 7-footer lineup for a while there. But basically, they've got what they need. They've got somebody who can defend on the perimeter with him. He shot high 30% from three this past season in college. He can kind of like secondary play make a little bit, but they don't really need that with Garland and Sexton, especially if they resign him. I think he's just a good like role player, and like you said, that's what they need. They're going for the playoffs this year. Obviously, they got the last pick in the lottery. And I don't know. I think they've got a good chance to. They kind of fell off at the end of last season, but it looked like they were going to be possibly have home court advantage the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, well, it happens. It happens, right? But no, I think the Cavs would be that. I think that'd be a great selection. I think they're an interesting team. I'm really excited to see what happens with them. And one last thing I want to do, I'll take, a couple minutes of your time, guys, to listen. But I want to just go over our one. I asked you to pick a sleeper, and I picked mine of the draft. It doesn't have to be some guy who's in the lottery, maybe a top 20 pick. It's just whoever our sleeper is. So my sleeper is Deron Seaborn from NC State. He averaged 17 points this year, shot about 50% from the field. Did not do well from three. He shot 25% from three, which is a doozy. That's really bad. But he was able to stretch the court in terms of he had a really good mid-range. He's really tall. He's super lanky. I think that he'd be a very interesting selection if you develop him properly. I mean, that would be pretty good if he can develop a three. I think he'd be super good. He'd fit in with a lot of teams. But I would go Deron Seaborn. I think he's a great selection. And believe me, I watched a lot of Clemson games, and two of the games I had to watch were when he played it when NC State played Clemson, and he scored 20 points each time. He can also get to the free throw line really well. He knows how to draw a foul. I mean, I swear, like the past couple of games, the last couple games of his game logs I kind of looked at, he was averaging about 8 to 10 free throws a game, which is super good. If you can get to the free throw line 8 to 10 times, that's really good. So I think Deron Seaborn, I think he'll be a late second round, maybe a mid second round pick. But if he goes to the right team, I think he can really boom.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. My guy is Patrick Baldwin, who, unlike Seaborn, was absolutely terrible in college. He averaged. I'm really selling this pick right now. He averaged 12 points a game. He had more turnovers than assists. He shot 26% from three, right, in 11 games. Then he got injured and stopped playing. But my idea, right, Shaedon Sharpe is going to be a top 5 pick probably, right, in the draft, and he didn't play college at all. If Patrick Baldwin wouldn't have played college at all, he would have been a lottery pick. He's probably going to go at the end of the first round, if not the second round. Okay, so hear me out. He played at Milwaukee. Okay, like, has anybody from Milwaukee ever played in the NBA? I'm sorry if they have, but I don't think. But so the idea, right, is that he was by far the best player on the team. Sure, he wasn't playing against good competition, but nobody else on his team was good either. He was by far the best player. And I don't know, based on like reading stuff about him, he was like a ball stopper, but that's because he didn't really have anybody else to pass to. And he was just kind of like throwing up shots and not really like fully engaged on defense, which is to be expected when you go to a place where like your dad is coaching and you're just by far the best player and you're just waiting to get to the NBA. So I feel like if he turned his mindset around, then he could be like the steal of the draft and be absolutely insane. Or who knows, he could be another like Harry Giles, who was a super high projected pick, fell off because he did bad in college and then never did anything in the NBA. So, but I think Patrick Baldwin has the highest ceiling out of every player who's not in the lottery.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was a good argument. I guess you're kind of convinced me. I like the idea of Patrick Baldwin. I do. I mean, I'm not disagreeing. I think that it is interesting. If he did sit out, yeah, he would have gone higher. But the issue is he didn't sit out and he played. And yes, it was lower competition, but he is a much higher. He's way more talented than these guys. But the one thing I did to say, and I'm gonna back you up. I agree. I do think he's a sleeper. He's gonna go later in the draft. And the couple things I was gonna say about Baldwin is, he went there to play with his dad, not discrediting his dad. And in any memes, he's obviously, again, college basketball coach. That's pretty good. You have to be a pretty good coach if you're coaching college basketball, no matter what level it is. But maybe that just wasn't the right dynamic for him. Maybe it was a little bit different playing with his dad. Maybe the pressure of it was different. And again, the guys I was playing against, yes, they aren't to the same talent level as these top tier like Dukes and Kansas and Kentucky teams that were recruiting him. Definitely could have gone him, and playing against these really good SEC teams each day. But the thing I'd say is the guys he's playing against. I mean, you could argue that they have a lot more heart, a lot more passion. But on top of that, the majority of them are very experienced, like older players who are playing their third, fourth, fifth years. And by doing that, they're much older, they're much more experienced. And when your game plan is to stop the best player, and you have older guys who are very smart, they've had 3, 4, 5 years of college coaching and game planning. It's gonna be pretty easy to, I guess, it's going to be hard for them to play against and easy to defend against because they know what to do and they know how to do it well. I mean, again, they've had all this experience where you might be playing the SEC and you might play against these teams that have a bunch of freshmen on them and are not doing well, like a Missouri, for example. If you're playing against Missouri, it's going to be easier to score because you also have other good players around you that the teams have to worry about. And I sound like I'm repeating your argument, but I'm just reassuring. I agree. I think that's a great selection, a great sleeper.
Yeah, and my thing is he's going to get drafted into a team, hopefully like at the end of the first round, who doesn't need him to be like one of their best players or anything right away, and he can play defense, and no matter what like the numbers show, like everybody when he was coming out of high school thought that he was going to be this knockdown 3-point shooter who can create off the dribble, right? So I feel like if he goes to a team at the end of the first round, like I don't know, like a Milwaukee or Golden State, get him in that like good culture and develop him. So maybe he doesn't play a lot the first couple years, but I think he can kind of grow into his own and then develop from there.
Yeah, definitely. There we go. That's our sleepers. That's who we have going in the drafts. Thank you guys for listening. I thank you for coming on, Drew. Any final words any statements you want to make before the draft? Anything you want to say?
I just hope the Thunder make two great picks in the lottery. That's all I'm hoping for this draft.
Even if they're outrageous at the time, maybe they turn out. What if they get AJ Griffin pick 2 and then they go Patrick Baldwin pick 12? How would that make you feel?
Maybe I'd be happy with that, Maybe it's
I
two of my
mean,
favorite players in the draft.
that's what I'm hearing. That's pretty good. I mean, Miami doesn't even have second round picks, so we better get Seaborn in the first round. Bit of a reach, but he's gonna hit. He's gonna be good.
I agree.
But thank you guys for listening. I thank you for coming on, Drew.